All right, so for today, we have lovely Miss Ruby, and this is Ruby's first day at Doggy Day School. So we're gonna warm up a little bit with our typical Find It's. Ready? So great exercise for puppies to get some energy out, but then also start practicing orientation from the environment back to you. Nice job, cutie. So when working with some of these Find It's, a great place to start off with most of your skills is gonna be within the home. And then you're going to build out to your yard, your driveway, potentially other maybe open areas in which you can practice in. Sometimes the benefit of, again, more of an open space is we tend to go right in for walks, and walks are great. But if you find that you have a puppy that's really pulley, in the sense that they're kind of hauling and they don't quite know what to do with their bodies, let alone their brains, it can be nice to start off loose leash walking exercises in an open area like your yard or your driveway. If, let's say, the yard, I know right now, like, all of our snow has melted, which means that all of the bunny poop is now magically available. So for some folks, the yards can be a little bit too distracting or too enriching from the dog's perspective. So for right now, we're just using some of her lovely carrots that you brought in, which were great, and a little bit of her kibble. And we're just having her bounce back and forth and just go and search for that snack. So the reason I love Find It's is, again, it can help your puppy decompress, get more comfortable, get some energy out where you become not the main target. So when you're first entering the space, or let's say you're, for example, having friends over, it can be really nice to sometimes, with an adolescent puppy especially, is they tend to have a really hard time regulating emotions and therefore their bodies. So when puppies get overwhelmed or flustered, they tend to use their bodies or their mouths to express that feeling. So that could equal a lot more jumping. Maybe when she gets overexcited or overwhelmed, she starts to mouth, being a retriever. So the Find It are a great way for friends or company or you to kind of keep her intrigued and entertained, but not have them be the culprit for the jumping up on. So, but Find It's, again, tend to be a great way to, again, create almost like the stepping stone where you're starting with like your ABCs before you can start to read words, before you read sentences, and before you go into reading a novel. So I know dogs don't read, I get it, but for our perspective, to understand that we have to start at the basics and then build up. Because remember, basic skills are later going to be our advanced skills, but they're going to be refined, mastered, and very reliable. So a lot of times we have to, again, still create a good foundation to then build onto there. So let's say, for example, we're going to rock a little bit with some recall practice. So there's a couple good rules to think about. Is, let's say, for example, we have by accident turned recall into the end of the game or the end of fun. So what I mean by that is I like to have 3 recall rules to think about. So my first one is to not make the recall the end of the game or the end of what they're finding enjoyable. So let's say our puppy in the beginning was doing a stellar job coming when called every time we call them from outside back into the home. The problem with, oh, wrong direction. She's like, I swore you were going to throw it this way. Ready? This way, madam. So let's say, for example, your puppy had been doing really great job coming when called, but then eventually they start to realize, gee, every time you call me, we go back into the really boring house and I'm all done exploring or rolling in the grass or whatever it might be that they're having fun with. I know, take a break, wild woman. She's like, this has been really fun. She was also doing some really nice wrestling with the other beauties, because today we have Miss Winnie, we have Teddy, and we have Mr. Bodie. So the 4 beauties. So when it comes to these recall practice moments, make sure that, let's say you are going to bring her into the home, I would have her practice coming to you and then feed her for that recall and then send her away to go explore the yard once more. Then what you're going to end up doing is maybe on that 5th recall, the 7th recall, the 15th recall, you maybe go in the home. But the recall was not the thing that made the going inside happen. Because then if, let's say, every time we called her, she's going to think that it always tends to equal, we're losing out on the fun adventure. The other option too is, let's say, for example, she is scared of tubby time, or she's scared of nail clippers, or whatever it might be. What we sometimes do by mistake is we pair the recall with that scary event. So let's say, for example, at one point my stepdaughter kind of spaced on it and she was calling our dog Bill over to the bathroom area because she wanted to give him a tub. Bill does okay in the bathroom. He does okay in the tub, but he doesn't love it. So the problem with pairing something he doesn't really like with a recall is he won't know when is the recall going to equal tub time versus when is the recall going to equal just great job coming when called. So we want to make sure that if the tub or something else is a little bit overwhelming, that we just go and do the thing and start practicing that separately from recall practice. The third recall rule would be to make sure that we are not, for example, scolding the puppy when they finally get back to us. So there could be a time where maybe your puppy ran away, they romped in the yard, they ran to the neighbor's house, they maybe went and even crossed the roadway a few times. But even though we get upset at the fact that they could have been harmed, and I completely get it, we do not want to seem scary, intimidating, or condescending where we're almost scaring them and spooky. Because at that point, the puppy's not going to realize you're mad as to what they were just doing. They're going to think you're mad because they did come to you. So, and that's going to ruin your recall for later. So coming to us should always be safe, non-threatening, and not the end of the game. And then you'll always get a beautiful, reliable recall down the road. So with our gorgeous gal, just like with any other skill, we do want to start to help them generalize the behavior in different venues with different varieties of distraction levels and distances. So if your babe can barely recall in the yard, I wouldn't go somewhere else and expect it to be magically working well. So I did see that you guys packed her longer training lead. Those are great for in the yard or for novel places or zones in which you want to make sure she has the option to, if she fails, she's still safely connected to you. Leashes, though, shouldn't create the behavior. So what I mean by that is if you're always pulling back on her to do a check-in, the problem with that is then she might always need the pressure or the lead to tell her it's time to check back in. So we want to practice as if she were a naked lady, because if the leash is the only thing communicating, what happens when she is later technically off gear? So ready? We'll do another little find it. So the way I like to work some recall practice is you're going to take these basics again with your find it, and then you're going to work recall practice. I forgot to ask, but I'm pretty sure you guys use the word come for recall. I know with Mr. B, it's the word here. So if I space and I mix up words, just let me know so I can make sure I'm using the correct cue for her versus her classmates. So again, I'm going to do another find it. Then when she's all the way over there finding her snack, I'm going to go again. She's like, chewing her carrot is hilarious. She's like, this one's maybe not as delicious as she thought. So I'm going to go, Ruby, come. She's like, this carrot's gross, but I'll eat it on the way. Yes. She's been loving the carrots this whole time, but maybe that carrot, for some reason, wasn't quite as intriguing, and she was halfway chewing on it at the way she was trying to walk over, but she wasn't quite as intrigued. She didn't see that other that other find it, so I'm doing it again. Ruby, come. Yes. 2, when your puppies come to you, I would jackpot the behavior. So a jackpot is where you feed several snacks for the thing you just got. So as opposed to giving one snack for the sit, maybe she's having a hard time with sits in public places, I give her 5 little snacks for the sit. So Ruby, come. Yes. I do want to mark behavior. So typically the YES means whatever you just did was the reason you just got that snack in the sense of your paycheck. Ready? Find it. Nice. We'll try again. Ruby, come. Yes, nice job. So I don't care if she's standing, sitting, lying down, but I would make sure in the beginning that it's not always about a sit. We tend to get into the habit of everything has to start off with a sitting position. And for a lot of puppies, that's either too overwhelming. They get a little confused as to why did the recall not count. So like right here for coming into my space, I'm going to feed her for that as well. So even though I didn't ask her to come to my bubble, I want her to think there's a lot of great value in coming back to the handler, because again, we sadly are not as cool as sometimes the environment. So we're trying to create a learning history of good things happen when you're near the handler. She's like, this is exhausting. So let's say again, we're going to try just maybe a few more little reps. When you are practicing, Ruby, come. Yes. Make sure that in the beginning, especially if your puppy's not as good with recalls, don't do huge distances. Try to limit the distraction level, and then also try to make sure you're practicing this in an environment where she already feels comfortable and not as excitable. So inside the home is a great option. Ruby says she's getting her steps in today with her romping. She's like, where to go? Ruby, come. Yes, good job. What a smart girl. So when it comes to recalls, I would make sure to avoid making it into a recall boot camp. So what that can consist of is sometimes asking your puppy like 60 times for a recall, they might be kind of calling it quits by 10. So make sure to give them breaks. So like right now, I'm just doing some easy find its. I'm not asking for a come when called, but I may still just capture the great moments where she comes into my space. You can also do a little bit of this with some, like, let's say, for example, the beginnings of loose leash walking. So I might send her away and then I'm going to start meandering and I'm going to see if she can go ahead and start coming off right here. Yes. The moment she comes back into my space, be it left or right, I don't really care in the beginning. I just want her to think there's value in coming back to the handler's, body, be it left or right side. So right now I'm just going to be meandering and we'll see if she heads back over to me. Yes, smart girl. So I'm going to jackpot again this little behavior, multiple little snacks. Yes, and it's just her kibble. And she's got a couple carrot bits that you brought. So again, where's my little lady? Ready? We'll do another little find it. And then from here, nice. So she's starting to figure out the puzzle that a lot of good stuff happens when you do come back to the handler, but also that it can be fun to go and get distracted, disengage, and you can still come back from that. Yes, nice job. So with the long line, I know I didn't put it on her. I would recommend get your puppy comfortable practicing. We'll practice with this a little bit more later too. For a longer training lead or even for loose leash walking, I do really love working with about a 10-foot to 15-foot training lead like this. And the benefit to that is it allows your pup more natural movement and freedom for exploration with their sniffer. But then from there, you could work on focus back to you and staying close by. If, for example, you were to, let's say, call her and there was no response, maybe she's got her head in a chipmunk hole or she's finding bunny poop or whatever. The big one here is I know we tend to ask a lot from the dogs, but remember, they don't speak English the way we do in the sense that we understand typically what's coming out of everybody's face. For her, view her like, again, a furry little exchange student who doesn't always understand what you want from her verbally, culturally, or physically. So if she has no idea what the heck we're spewing about, don't ask for a skill if you don't think she's going to respond to it. So if we see that she's busy chasing a chipmunk, that would not be the moment where I'm going to constantly say, so-and-so come 15 times as she's already very much so gone. That's where the longer lead would come into play. And you just go walking down the lead and then collect up your beautiful girl and move away from that harder spot. She says, this is very tiring. She's going to be pooped out today after class. Ready? Find it? So, but you guys may also find is practice the gear also in the home. I'm not saying so she gets tangled and knocks over your chairs or whatever like that. But if the only time we put on the long training lead or a regular leash is only, let's say, outside, that can start to equal a lot of woohoo or oh no. So I'd make sure, like I know I discussed kind of equipment in some of the previous videos with other students, but make sure your gear doesn't create sort of losing marbles with excitement to, oh no, I'm feeling nervous about it. More just kind of, there it is, it's just one more piece, and we'll kind of work through some of those skills. Nice. But maybe what we'll do is we'll give her a little break from this exercise. You're going to do a little sit? She's like, yes, ma'am. Good job. So we're going to work a few other little skills, but for the recall, we'll keep working on this also where we can practice with the long lead as well. But she's getting a little tired, so I don't want to keep rocking it and drilling it. I want to keep it easy, fun, and attainable. So maybe what I'd like to do is we're going to give her a little breather, and maybe we'll work a little bit with going to our bed and practice a bit with some stays and relaxation a little bit after she already had some of this exhausting practice. Right? We'll do a little find it, and we'll give Miss R a little breather. That was so good.